Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington, where escalating trade wars and mixed messaging from the White House continue to raise concerns about the fate of the U.S. economy. The markets just ended today's session with the Dow relatively flat. The other major indices slightly up after a key inflation report came in cooler than expected, which was welcome news for the White House, as new 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports took effect today, putting new price pressure on U.S. consumers. Also today, more tariff retaliation from top trading partners, including Canada, which announced tariffs on $21 billion in U.S. goods, and the European Union, which announced tariffs on $28 billion in goods as well. Here's Canada's foreign minister earlier today.
This is much more than about our economy. It is about the future of our country. Canadian sovereignty and identity are non-negotiable. Canadians have had enough, and we are a strong country.
In an effort to cool some of the tensions between the U.S. and Canada, a Canadian delegation is coming to Washington tomorrow to meet with top Trump administration officials, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Lutnick has been one of the most ardent proponents of tariffs, but has notably shifted his outlook on what effect those tariffs may have on the U.S. economy. Here's what he said on Meet the Press on Sunday and then last night. Should Americans brace for a recession?
Absolutely not. Anybody who bets against Donald Trump, it's like the same people who thought Donald Trump wasn't a winner a year ago. Donald Trump is a winner. He's going to win for the American people. That's just the way it's going to be. There's going to be no recession in America.
Will these policies be worth it if they lead to a recession, even a short-term recession?
These policies are the most important thing America has ever had.
So it is worth it.
It is worth it.
The message hasn't been much clearer from the president, who has seemingly shifted his position about both the economic outlook and the reason for tariffs.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate. Who knows? All I know is this. We're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money.
The Commerce Secretary said there wouldn't be one.
Boom. Just so you know.
Just specifically on the recession.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a recession?
I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom.
Business leaders and investors, meanwhile, have urged the administration to provide more clarity on its tariff strategy, as the president has simultaneously threatened pulled back and doubled down on various tariffs in his first few weeks in office. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell pressed President Trump on this issue as he answered questions from reporters in the Oval Office today. Take a look.
There's been a lot of on and off, some inconsistency.
There's no inconsistency, only with NBC, which is one of the worst networks on television, by the way. Let me just tell you the inconsistency. I have the right to adjust. And I'm not like a block that just, I won't delay. It's called flexibility. It's not called inconsistency. It's called flexibility. And I think you want me to be flexible, too.
Is flexibility going to be your ongoing view toward?
Sure, I'll always have flexibility. But there will be very little flexibility once we start.
Joining me now is our team of reporters. Aaron Gilchrist is at the White House. Gabe Gutierrez is on the ground in Canada. And Brian Cheung has the latest on the economy. And with me on set is Elise Labott, Edward R. Murrow Press Fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and author of Cosmopolitics on Substack. Aaron, let me start with you. Let's talk about what the conversations are inside the West Wing. How much concern is there about a potential recession? I was able to interview the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, on Sunday. He said there will be no recession in America, but he's obviously shifted his tone a little bit.
Yeah, but I do think, though, Kristen, that the messaging from this White House, without regard to the change in policy, the message seems to be fairly consistent that they intend to stay the course. We should not expect to see that the president or his team might pull back on some of the things they're doing as it relates to our domestic economy and as it relates to trade policy with other countries. Although, as you noted, there are going to be negotiations with the Canadians. We just heard the National Economic Advisor give an interview where he said that he anticipates GDP will be growing for the first quarter between 2 and 2.5%. We heard Caroline Leavitt, the president's press secretary, talking to reporters a little bit earlier today and saying that the economy is in a good place. The economy will continue down the road that it's going in the right direction, she said. She pointed out inflation, the CPI numbers that came out today, and she pointed to the fact that there are businesses that are continuing to invest in the United States. GE Aerospace, she noted, is investing $1 billion and is creating more jobs here. And so I think that's the message that seems to be coming from the White House, that it's not wildly concerned about a terrible recession coming in the near future, and that it's trying to stay on message and on task of instituting these economic policies that it believes will ultimately bear fruit for the U.S. economy, Kristen. And
we see how dug in the president is, but what about those around him? Is there any dissent, any debate about how robustly they should move forward?
There doesn't seem to be a lot of dissent. I think there is some debate. The president himself has indicated that he surrounds himself with people who have differences of opinion sometimes and that they may bump heads. But at the end of the day, we have heard repeatedly from the Commerce Secretary, from the Treasury Secretary, from the National Economic Advisors and others in this administration that they are executing on the plan that President Trump wants them to execute on. And so I think, Kristen, that's what we should expect to see going forward. The president indicated on more than one occasion that he thought that there could be some bumps in the road, little disturbances, I think was the phrasing that he used, but that doesn't seem to have deterred him from the tariffs that we've seen put in place on Mexico and Canada, from the steel and aluminum tariffs that we saw go in place today around the world. And we can't forget that come April 2nd, this administration still fully intends to institute reciprocal tariffs on countries all around the globe.
The trade war intensifying. Aaron Gilchrist, thank you so much. From outside the White House, I want to head now to Gabe Gutierrez, who is in Canada. Gabe, thank you so much for joining us. Take us inside the conversations that you are having there. What has the reaction been to this trade war?
Hi there, Kristen. Well, good afternoon from a very frigid Charlevoix. Probably a metaphor for the frosty relations that we're seeing here between the U.S. and Canada. And look, I've been speaking with people over the last day or so here in the Quebec region, and they are so furious at what's going on. We heard from Canadian officials earlier today. You mentioned that a Canadian delegation heading to Washington tomorrow to speak with Commerce Secretary Lutnick and to try and come to some sort of agreement to roll back these tariffs. But there is incredible frustration here in Drummondville, which is a few hours from here. We spoke with an official with the city, as well as a metal processing company that has 150 employees, is worried about potentially losing jobs. In that town alone, some 3,000 jobs are at risk. And we spoke to that official from the mayor's office. Listen to more what he told us about what's at stake.
Here in the city, it's nearly 3,000 jobs that are at risk with these tariffs across the board, nearly 100,000 across Quebec. And I think I can't stress it enough that it's not benefiting anybody. Everybody's losing, and especially Americans, because in the end, tariffs, who are going to pay for tariffs? It's not President Trump. It's not Prime Minister Trudeau or Prime Minister Carney now. It's American consumers and Canadian consumers. So nobody's winning in this.
There's also incredible frustration here, Kristen, about the idea that President Trump keeps repeating, annexing Canada, making it the 51st state. There's a lot of anger here, a lot of outrage from these Canadians, which are typically so polite, but there's just so many questions about where they go from here, and a sense of betrayal as well that their biggest trading partner is doing this to them, Kristen.
And Gabe, let me just follow up with you, because Secretary of State Marco Rubio, of course, just landed in Canada ahead of a meeting there of the G7 foreign ministers. What did he say about this meeting before arriving in Canada?
Yeah, and Secretary Rubio will be here for this G7 foreign ministers meeting throughout the rest of the week. And this tariffs issue will be top of mind. He was asked about it earlier today as he was traveling here. He spoke with reporters. And look, he said this wasn't going to be a meeting about taking over Canada. He was asked about the annexation issue. But certainly Canadian officials here say that they will bring up the issue of these tariffs. And Secretary Rubio defended the Trump administration's position that, look, this is something that the United States needs to do because of deindustrialization over the past few decades, and that it is in the country's national security interests to impose these tariffs. But certainly he's expected to get an earful here at this meeting later on this week, Kristen.
Yeah, and I know we'll be watching that very closely. All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much. Brian Cheung, let me head over to you. You and I spent all of last week talking about the uncertainty that the president's tariff policy was creating from Wall Street to Main Street. Big picture, how is the market feeling this week about what we are seeing with this ongoing trade war?
Well, we did get a little bit of a bounce back today with the S&P 500 coming back. The Dow did close marginally in the red, down about 0.2%, but that pales in comparison to losses that we saw earlier this week, especially when you rewind to Monday when we had the steepest losses, the worst day on Wall Street of 2025 for all the three major indexes. But what's happening to Wall Street is very much the concern that's happening on Main Street as well, which is just uncertainty about these tariffs. I mean, if you put yourself in the position of a small business, you do not have any more certainty today than you did yesterday, than you did last week, than you did the month prior in terms of how much it's going to cost you to bring in the toys that you might sell in your store or the raw ingredients that you need to bring in to make candy or the steel that you need to import from Canada to then make small appliances that you might sell in the United States. So because of that uncertainty, you have a lot of companies that are now guiding lower. And you look at the likes of Delta Airlines, American Airlines, slashing their outlooks for the first quarter of this year because they're worried about some of this bleeding over into consumer confidence and maybe not wanting to travel. Same thing with Kohl's, the retailer that also lowered their guidance. So this is happening in many sectors of the economy, and that uncertainty hasn't gotten any clearer as of late.
Yeah, and Brian, you mentioned the inflation report. Take us inside the numbers. What's your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, and this was largely a big catalyst for some of the bounce back that we saw in markets today. As you mentioned at the top here, 2.8%. That's the number that we got in terms of how much prices increased between February of this year and February of last year. That's good news on two fronts. One, because economists were expecting 2.9%, so this is lower than that. And of course, we want inflation to go down. And it's also lower than the 3% rate that we had recorded in the month of January. And what's even more encouraging when you look at this report is that when you break it out by these major categories, we saw a slowing. These are monthly rates that we're looking at now in the rate of inflation for these three major categories: food, energy, and shelter. All getting a little bit slower in terms of the rate of price increases. Now, of course, some people might be saying, yeah, but I've seen the price of eggs. And yes, indeed, the government data does verify that the average price of a dozen has increased by almost a double. It's crazy. We even remember we were paying $3 a dozen at one point last year. Milk prices have gone sideways. One silver lining here is that gasoline prices have gone down by 10 cents. One other thread that people might be thinking about this report, oh, wait, I thought these tariffs were going to make everything more expensive. This covers the month of February before we saw many of these tariffs. So here are the categories I'm going to be looking for in the future reports. Appliances and new vehicles, because of these steel and aluminum imports, again, 25% more expensive now. These were the monthly changes between January and February. Nothing really crazy here. I'm also watching computers. This increased by 0.7%. This is because of the Chinese tariffs. We kind of forget about that as part of the conversation as well. 20% now being levied on anything coming in from China. That could get ratcheted up in the future as well, as the president had promised on the campaign trail. These prices could go up in the months to come, Kristen.
All right, Brian Cheung breaking down all of the numbers for us. Thank you so much, Brian. Great to see you as always. Elise Labott here with me on set. Thank you for coming back, Elise. We appreciate it. It's great to have you back. Yeah. Let's start off by talking about what we're seeing, which is this really aggressive approach toward Canada, this trade war that is escalating. What are your takeaways at this very moment?
Well, there's two things, really, right? There's the tariffs and the economic impact. And then, you know, as Aaron was saying earlier, it's also the whole idea of this ally abandoning us. And if you look at Canada, who's, you know, Canadians are really usually mild-mannered. You've seen protests. You see them, you know, really doubling down, nationalism really taking root, taking American products off the shelves. Kentucky bourbon producers forever, where Mitch McConnell, you know, it's his state. Now they're made in Canada by Canadian. So it's really having the opposite effect. And then there's the idea of that this is so haphazard, right? The, start, stop, kind of riding the brake on the tariffs is creating so much uncertainty, not just in Canada, but here. And you see consumer confidence really and that uncertainty affecting markets here.
We didn't know how seriously to take President Trump initially when he started talking about making Canada a 51st state. He's increasingly talked about it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that these tariffs are all about basically tanking the Canadian economy so that he can annex Canada. How seriously are officials taking this threat?
In Canada?
In Canada.
Look, on the face of it, it's kind of ridiculous, right? Like, what would happen if obviously, United States is a huge country, but if Mexico said, oh, what would you think of becoming, Mexican Americans? I mean, the Canadians are like, it's not for sale. And so you see this, and, you here on NBC, we watch Saturday Night Live, and you saw Mike Myers with the elbows up is a hockey term in Canada. Canadians have their elbows up and they're ready to fight back, and it's just offensive. And you've heard, the Canadian foreign minister, you heard former Prime Minister Trudeau just say, look, this is offensive. We're not for sale. We want good relations, but stop it.
Yeah, and what's notable about this moment, here we have, new to President Trump in terms of his dealing with the new Mexican president, and then also the new Prime Minister of Canada. How do you anticipate he's going to navigate these relationships?
Well, I think you can consider what he's doing right now, this bully tactic. But if it continues to hurt American consumers, just like we've seen, he may change his mind. I think also in Europe, as a bloc, it's a very large trading bloc. Yeah. And Germany is one of the, U.S.'s largest exporters of cars. This is really going to have a global effect. And I'm also concerned about some of the wider talk about kind of eschewing American economic leadership around the world. We've heard about this Mar-a-Lago Accord, this paper that's floating around about weakening the dollar, and maybe not, the whole idea that should global currency be pegged to the dollar. I mean, he's really trying to, Kristen, upend the whole global economic system.
What are economists saying about what that would actually look like if you were able to upend the entire economic system globally? If the dollar were to be devalued, the White House, President Trump may say, well, that ultimately, in the long run, emboldens America, but it's very risky.
Well, and it has unintended consequences, just like economists are saying, these tariffs could have unintended consequences that could last decades, right? George W. Bush's steel tariffs, like we felt that for years. And it can have these unintended consequences. Yes, it might help America in the short term. Economists don't think so. But then, other countries may seek alternatives. The Chinese are waiting in the wings. So this isn't just about, the price of eggs. And look, there is something to be said for trying to have some more equilibrium in the market. We go overseas. We try to go to the duty free because, foreign products are so expensive. Yeah. But, when it upends the whole economic system, economists are warning of a global financial crisis. It's not just a little bully tactics. It has larger kind of economic ripple effects.
Well, and I know you're watching every single twist and turn in these ripple effects. Thank you for joining us for your insights, Elise.
Good to be back.
Great to have you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.